All right, here we go. Chaim, I didn't find anything on your question you asked me. I don't. The other thing I could think of is that we see later on that Esav. There is a commentary that says later on where Esav comes to greet Yaakov in next week's Parsha. Right. He comes for war, and the next thing you know, he's hugging Yaakov. So our commentaries that say the Esavs of the world, they don't have control of themselves. They want to do one thing, but they end up doing something else. So the Esav of the world, the Esavs could say, I'll wait till my father dies, but next thing you know, just go kill him, because he gets, overwhelmed emotionally. So we see a precedent for that sort of thing in next week's Parsha.
He had emotions. He's the way he was a killer and everything. I just think he just...
No, they're human beings. So, he's trying to control himself. A tzaddik is trying to control himself and does control himself. An Esav tries to control himself and can't control himself. He wants to do A, but his passions take him to B. That's why he's a Russia. Okay, we're in Parsha Vayeitzei. So I want to show you a phenomenal idea here. Absolutely phenomenal idea. But you can't ask me any questions about it at all. Any logistical problems, you have to work out yourself. It's a tapestry. I've told you many times. There are certain concepts here. Either you hear it or you don't hear it. It's not, you can't analyze the painting. Right? Either you see the art or you don't see the art. Either you see the beauty or you don't see the beauty. If you don't appreciate the beauty of an orchestra, then I can't help you, and I certainly can't help you because I don't appreciate it. But if you know certain things in life, so I'm going to tell you a concept, tell you an idea, and you'll either hear it or you won't hear it. Okay. So as the story progresses, Yaakov goes to Lavan, and everybody knows that he decides he wants to marry Rochel. So pick it up on page all the way back. Pick it up on page 150. Page 150. Vayomer lo Lavan. Yaakov shows up, and he shows up empty-handed, which disappoints Lavan, because the last time that a guy came from there was Eliezer, who came with 10 camels laden with all sorts of good things. Vayomer lo Lavan, achatzvi b'sari ata. You are my own flesh and blood. Vayeshavim chodesh yamim. So he's there for a month. Vayomer Lavan leYaakov, achi achi ata v'vatani chinam. Are you going to serve me for nothing? Hagidu li ma maskurtecha. What do you want as a price? Ulu Lavan shtei banos. Shema Gedola Leah v'Shema Ktana Rochel. The older one is Leah, the younger one is Rochel. Ve'ene Leah Rakos. Leah has soft eyes. There are two opinions here. One is that she had very beautiful eyes. The other opinion is that her eyes were soft from crying. Her eyes were soft and puffy from crying. They were unattractive eyes from crying because she cried because she heard the rumors that the older daughter is going to marry the older son, which is Esav, and the younger daughter is going to marry the younger son, which is Yaakov. So there are two opinions about which way to go with Leah here, with her eyes. Rochel was very, very beautiful. Vayav Yaakov es Rochel. Yaakov loved Rochel. Vayover evodcha sheva shanim b'Rochel bitcha aktana. I'll serve you 7 years for Rochel, your younger daughter. So the first idea we have to hear here is that this is not the same type of infatuation that we experience. We're talking about Yaakov Avinu. Yaakov Avinu is a prophet. And Yaakov Avinu decides that since he feels some sort of attraction to Rochel, and he's a prophet, so he feels that this is the one that he is meant to be marrying. So in order to enhance that feeling, she's beautiful, but it's not the sort of thing that we have been indoctrinated by Hollywood and all the nonsense. Is Yaakov, who is a Navi, as a prophet, he feels that there's obviously something that's supposed to happen here. And if as a Navi he's feeling this drive, this draw to her, so then it's, what do you call it? Then this is the one that he's supposed to be married. So he says, I'll work for Rochel. I'll give you 7 years for Rochel. So Lavan agrees to it. And the first question is, and let's go on for one more pasuk. Look at pasuk Chaf. Vayavod Yaakov b'Rochel shevesh. I say works for 7 years. Vayu beinav ki yamim achadim ba'avosa osa. And the 7 years were like just a few days. It passed like a few days. Now there are two questions here. The first question is, why did he pick 7 years? Why did Yaakov pick 7 years to go work for what do you call it, for Lavan, or for Rochel? Why 7 years? 7 years seems like a long time. So there are several approaches here. One approach is that Yaakov feels that he needs a preparation now because he's about to start producing the tribes. So he needs another chunk of time to work on himself. And 7 years, the number 7 we always find as a unit of completion. 7 days of the week, 7 days of celebration when a person gets married, 7 days of mourning, 7 days of Sukkot, 7 days of Pesach. It's always a unit of 7. The unit of 7, which comes from the creation of the world, is always that unit of completion. And so Yaakov needs to work on himself now for 7 years. Number one. Number two, he wants Rochel, who's been raised by a Lavan, he wants Rochel to experience being around somebody who's the opposite of Lavan. There's an ulpan here for Rochel. Rochel's going to be a mother of Klal Yisrael. She has to see what a fine, upstanding person looks like. And for 7 years, she can now observe Yaakov, who's working as a faithful shepherd to Lavan. We see later on, he says, I worked by night, I worked by day, I never took a cat nap, you know. And so Rochel herself, who is already somebody striving for greatness and perfection, because she's obviously been planted there by HaKadosh Baruch Hu to become Yaakov's soulmate. But she still needs to be able, Yaakov feels she needs to be able to observe him for 7 years to see what it's like to be a real person, a real Torah Jew. One of the commentaries said that, I heard somebody once said he wanted her to feel how precious she is to him, that she's worth 7 years of his life. Right? Yeah, you're worth 7 years. So whatever it is, Yaakov chooses a 7 year period. Now what's puzzling here is then the Torah says and the 7 years passed very quickly. You know, if you're waiting for class to end, how quickly does the time pass? It takes forever, right? If you're waiting for summer vacation, how long is each day till summer vacation? It's a lifetime. When you're waiting for, you know, when your mother-in-law is coming for a visit in 2 weeks, the 2 weeks fly by, right? You know, it's already here. You know, that sort. But when you're waiting for something that you like, and you got to wait for it, the time passes by like, you know what? It's crawling. Yaakov says 7 years. It passed by like a few days. So there are commentaries that say, no, while it was happening, it took a while. They did feel it, but it's only looking back, like, wow, we're here already, type of thing. But that's not the plain meaning. The plain meaning is that for a Yaakov Avinu, in preparing, you know what it would be like? It's like when you're cramming for a final. And it's actually a test that you've got, but you anticipate doing well on this test. You just need a little bit more time to really study well. It's not one of those tests where you're clueless. It's a test where you plan on doing well. You just need a little, you got 3 hours till the test. And you got a few notes, key notes that you want to look over. And those 3 hours go flying by. As you prepare yourself to feel, next thing you know, I'm out of time. I'm out of time, right? Yaakov, who's preparing for an important task, for him, the 7 years flies by because he's preparing for something. As opposed to somebody who's just anticipating getting married, in which case the time would crawl by. It would be like you know, dropping one grain of sand at a time. And so Yaakov Avinu, the 7 years fly by. Now, he says to Lavan, everybody knows this story. He says to Lavan, okay, let me marry my wife. And he even makes it clear to Lavan, and he does everything he can anticipating a switch. He does everything he can to prevent the switch. He says, I'll work 7 years. Rochel bitcha haktana. Rochel, which Rochel? Your daughter. Which daughter? Haktana, the younger one. So he makes it very clear which one it is, and he still manages to get swindled. That's what Rashi says. Okay. So Lavan swindles him. Now watch this conversation. Yaakov gets up in the morning, and turns out it was Leah. 3 lines on the bottom. Vahiba boker v'hinei Leah. Vayomer Lavan, mazos asisoli, what'd you do? Halo barachel avadati imach, v'lamari misani. I served you for Rochel. Why did you cheat me? Now look what Lavan says. I told you, everybody has that one guy that you really admire. I got this I love it. You know, there's one guy in the Torah that you feel you can relate to. Some people relate to Yitzchak Avinu. Some people relate to Yosef Atzadik. Lavan's the guy I could relate to, right? Lavan, he's good. I mean, this guy is good. You should have seen what I did to my brother when we played Monopoly, right? This guy is he's my role model. You know, listen, when I played Monopoly with my brother, I was always the banker. And I always felt that, you know, bankers get like quarterly bonuses and stuff, you know. And there was always accusations of financial misappropriations, right? In other words, that I was cheating. And I won't deny it outright. I will just tell you that I did have a high rate of winning. So on page, so Yaakov says, hey, what'd you do? What'd you cheat me for? You cheated me. I made a deal. Look at Lavan's answer. Vayomer Lavan lo yeyasa kein bimkomenu. Sorry, that's not the habit here. Let the younger one go before the older one. But I'll tell you what, finish this week of celebration and I'll let you marry the younger one too. And Yaakov does it. Doesn't say a word back to Lavan. I mean, you know, if you were Yaakov and you said, yeah, hey, what's going on here? I work for the younger one. And he sneaks in the older one. Then he says to you after you come to him, he says, hey, what's going on here? And Lavan says to you, oh, by the way, in the custom here, we don't let the younger one go before the older one. What would your reaction be? Well, shkoyach, why didn't you tell me about this 7 years ago when I started working for you? Why tell me about this now? And look what Yaakov does. Yaakov doesn't say a word. He just says, okay. And he starts working now again. And 7 days later, he marries Rochel and now has 7 more years to work her off. So one of the approaches here is you see the greatness of a Yaakov Avinu. Yaakov Avinu is a person of such self-control. He's been cheated. He's been deceived. Not going to make an issue out of it. Let's go on. Let's get, what's the expression used nowadays? Get past it. Just get past it. Okay, get past it. All right, it wasn't in my comfort zone, and you're toxic, right? But we'll get past it. These are all your expressions. We never use those expressions. There was no comfort zone when I was growing up. You did what you had to do, right? You had no comfort zone, right? And nobody was toxic. You were just a miserable wretch, right? Nobody was toxic. Oh, he's toxic, you know? My favorite word. And then that's what he called. Get past. So Yaakov Avinu shows the greatness of his self-control. Look, there's nothing I can do about it now anyway. What am I going to do? Punch a guy out? Attack the guy? What am I going to do? Okay, let's get on. But there's a much sharper idea here. The Beis HaLevi, who was one of the first in the line of the Soloveitchiks, the Briskers. So he says, you know, Yaakov comes to Lavan and says, hey, why'd you deceive me? So Lavan comes back with the ultimate answer. He says now read the pasuk again. Vayomer Lavan. Lavan says to Yaakov, Lo yeyasa kein bimkomenu. In our place, we don't do such a thing. Lo seisat se'ira lifnei ha'bechira, to let the younger one go before the older one. Maybe where you come from, younger brothers steal brachas that really go to the older ones. But around here, we don't do things like that. Now, what could Yaakov possibly say to that? Yaakov would say, oh, yeah, but I had to. He says, well, I had to also. In other words, it's such a brilliant answer that it blocks you off, it heads you off of the path. I can't claim that you shouldn't swindle because you also swindled. Yeah, but I had a reason for this. Me too. That's the best possible. Isn't that sharp? Isn't that sharp? Very. He says, that's what Lavan's saying. I said, what do you want from me? By us, younger ones don't go ahead of older ones. Yeah, And that's why Yaakov has nothing to say back. I saw one of the other commentaries say, Vayomer Lavan, this is kind of tongue-in-cheek, but it's cute for a Lavan. Vayomer Lavan, lo, when we say no, yeyasek kain, it becomes yes, bimkomenu. No becomes yes in our place. Meaning we do the opposite of what we say. Right? That's also why we're read into the words over here. Okay? Now, that's the end of the story with Yaakov and Lavan, and now he marries Rochel, and now he's married to Leah and Rochel. And then the Torah goes on, and Leah starts having children. She has Reuven, she has Shimon, she has Levi, and she has Yehuda. Leah immediately starts having children. Leah was supposed to be barren, as were all the mothers. Why were they barren? They were barren in order to promote more intensity of tefillah. to daven HaKadosh Baruch Hu that they should have children. Leah already davened. When did she daven? She davened she shouldn't marry Esav. When it says Leah cried not to marry Esav, what do you think? She sat in the corner on Little Sally Saucer? Little Sally Saucer sitting in the corner. Cry, Sally, cry. You never heard that? Boy, you guys are deprived. My goodness. I didn't like that song either. But Little Sally, she's not like that. Yeah, no. I never liked it. It's one of those kids. It's one of those things they tell you when you're a kid. It's like when they say to you, okay, white, rise and shine in the morning. Rise and shine. The early bird catches the worm. Like, you know, what kind of motivation is that? You know, I know. Oh wow. Oh, get up early, you get a worm. You know, if you tell me the early bird catches a $20 bill, okay, then I could hear the early bird catches the worm. Big motivation over that. I'd roll over, and go back to sleep. Right. So that was one of those that I never liked that story. There are also some stories were good. Some stories were kind of a little Sally Saucer. I didn't get the point of that one. In any event, so Leah wasn't just sitting in the corner crying. It was crying her eyes out in tefillah. She was crying her eyes out in prayer. Whatever she had to achieve, whatever Rochel and Sarah and Rivka had to achieve through tefillah to have children, Leah already achieved that through crying not to marry Esav. So even though she was meant to be barren, she starts having children right away. Okay, now fasten your seatbelts. Okay, here we go. Take a look what happens later. On page 154, okay? This is no questions. Either you hear it or you don't hear it. But we're going to go through this with a thread that runs all the way through. On 154, it says like this. Pick it up 4 lines from the bottom. Vayelech Ruvain b'meiktzir chitim, vayimtza dudoim basada. Ruvain finds mandrakes. That's how they're translated. They're apparently a fertility bush of some sort. Vayosam Aleah imo. She brings it to Leah. Vatomer Rochel Aleah tinali minami lidoi b'dech. Let me have some of those mandrakes. Now let's stop for a second here. What happened when Leah was about to be brought in? When Leah was going to be brought in to Yaakov, when Lavan pulls the switch, what did Rochel do? What did Rochel do?
So she basically taught her sister the hand motions that Yaakov and Rochel...
Okay, so she taught her sister the sign. It doesn't say hand motions. It says there was some sort of secret code that Yaakov gave Rochel. And this was going to be the password, the secret code, so that on the night of the wedding, because Yaakov all along is anticipating a switch. All along, Yaakov is worried about this happening, and it still happened. So Yaakov gives Rochel simanim, what's called simanim, the signals. And on the night of the wedding, when they're in a pitch black room, if she knows the signal, that's the right wife. Says the Gemara that as Rochel saw that Leah was going to be taken in, so Rochel realizes, hey, if Yaakov figures out that this is Leah, and he comes out of there and says, hey, what's going on here? My sister is going to be humiliated. So what does Rochel do? She gives Leah the simanim. That's what the Gemara says. She gave Leah the simanim. That Leah should have the secret code. And Rochel, when she gave the secret code, was in effect giving up her husband. She doesn't know she's going to marry him. She's giving up Yaakov, the benefits of living with him in this world, possible benefits of the world to come, all for one reason, to spare her sister the shame and the embarrassment of being all of a sudden shown to be an imposter. Says the Gemara in Megillah, now listen carefully, B'schus Tznius shehaisa b'Rochel, because of the Tznius, the discreetness of Rochel. She was so discreet, she merited to have an offspring called Shaul HaMelech, who himself was very, very tzanua. When Shaul found out he was anointed king and his uncle asked him, what's new? He didn't say a word about being anointed king. And then he merited to have a granddaughter, a descendantess, who was also very discreet, which was who? Esther, who doesn't tell anybody she's Jewish. That's what the Gemara says. Why did Rochel merit this? The Gemara in Megillah says, Daf Yud Gimel, the Gemara merits this. She merited because of her tznius. Now, I got 2 questions here. First of all, if I was writing the Gemara, would you call giving up your husband an act of tznius? I would call it selflessness, self-sacrifice. What's tznius got to do with it? What's discreet? Why does the Gemara describe it as tznius? So she did it in a very tznius way, but at the end of the day, it's a self-sacrifice. It's a self-sacrifice that there's even a medrash that says she was in the room, and when Yaakov spoke to Leah, Rochel answered. There's such a medrash. Imagine that torture. So why is it called tznius? That's my first question. My second question is, look at the next pasuk now on page 154. Reuven finds these mandrakes. Now listen, I'm telling you, if you don't get the goosebumps from this, if you hear this, Vatomer lo, she says to Leah, let me have some of those mandrakes. Vatomer lo, so Leah responds back to Rochel. Hama'at kachtech is ishi, it's not enough you took my husband? V'lakachas games dudoi b'ni, you also want the mandrakes? Vatomer Rochel achein yishkav imach halayla tachdoi Rochel, because Yaakov will visit with you tonight. I mean, Leah? You know what Rochel did for you? Okay, so Yaakov favors Rochel more than Leah. And according to some of the commentaries, Leah herself didn't even sense it. It's only prophetically that she found out. She didn't even feel it. Because Yaakov, you're not allowed to favor one wife. Okay, so Rachel's the favored wife. If not for Rochel, you wouldn't be married to Yaakov at all. So she comes over and asks if she's barren. You have 4 kids. She's barren. She asks you for some of the mandrakes. And what's Leah's response? Oh, it's not enough you took my husband? You want my mandrakes also? I mean, Leah's buried with Yaakov Avinu in the Maras HaMachpelah. We're talking about Leah as a Neviah. Rashi says she was a prophetess. Hi, that's a response from a Leah. How did she come? He never had that question? I had the question every year when I saw it. Never had an answer. Till one year I finally stumbled across an answer. And the answer goes back to the first part. Why does the Gemara in Megillah call it tznius? Why is it called she's discreet? Just say, because of her self-sacrifice, she merited to have a Shoel HaMelech and an Esther HaMelech. The answer is like this. All what the Gemara says in one place is there were signals exchanged, a code exchanged between Yaakov. So we think to ourselves, like Ezra said, hand signals, hand signals. And we think this will be like
Rashi says.
Like something like that. So the Das Academy Bali Tosos quotes an obscure medrash. And he says, you know what the signs were between Yaakov and Rochel? Yaakov taught Rochel the halachas of Nida, Chala, and Hadlakas Hanir. Those are the laws that a Jewish woman has to know. The laws that a frum woman has to know, Nida, Chala, Hadlakas Hanir. That was the code. When Rochel saw that Leah was going to be taken in, so Rochel went to Leah, and she said to Leah, Leah, listen, you're going to become the wife of Yaakov Avinu. There are certain halachas you need to know. Nida, Chala, Hadlakas Hanir. She never told Leah she's giving her the code. She simply taught her the halachas. When Leah goes in, Yaakov says to Leah, okay, gives her a farher, right? And now Leah knows all the answers. That's the one. That means Leah never knew what Rochel did for her. Not only she did it in a tznius way so that Leah shouldn't feel she owes her one. That's the greatness of a Rochel. Not only doing it, but doing it in a way that your sister doesn't even know what you've done for her. And that's why when Rochel comes to Leah and she says, can I have some mandrakes? Leah says, oh, it's not enough you took my husband. Leah didn't even know that there was supposed to be. She didn't know anything about any of this. All she knows is Rochel gave her the, what do you call it? She taught her some halachas. So Leah goes in and doesn't even realize what Rochel has done for her. So Leah turns to Rochel. She says, not enough you took my husband. Now, I want to tell you something else. Even if you could imagine doing the first part of it, giving away the codes, even if you could imagine going that far with it, at the point that Leah says this, Rochel, it's not enough you took my husband? You want my mandrake too? Even if she would have gotten this, at this point, if it was me, I would say, Leah, I think we got to talk. Yeah, I think there's something you got to know. And even here, Rochel doesn't say a word. Even here, when Rochel is accused by Leah, and she's berated by Leah over here, and Rochel still doesn't say a word. That's the greatness of a Rochel. That's the Tznius of a Rochel. That's the approach over here. That answers all the questions. Now, you got logistic problems, you take care of them on your own. But at the end of the day, that's the approach over here. The greatness of Rochel is not only what she did, but also, and perhaps even more, how she did it. It's like when you give tzedakah, it's not only the act of giving the tzedakah, but to be as discreet as possible about giving the tzedakah, that's also part of the tzedakah. And to give it with a friendly countenance and so on and so forth. Not only doing a mitzvah, it's how you do the mitzvah. That's the greatness of a Rochel over here. Okay. Now, let's go on. So Yaakov is now married to Rochel, and then you have the whole incident with the whole incident with the sheep. Now let's go on. So there was one point I wanted to mention. Yeah, let's go back because I forgot that I mentioned this yesterday as a vital point. Gotta go back to the rock. Okay, on page. Forgot to mention this yesterday. On page 148. So we were talking about yesterday on page 148 on Pasuk Yud. 8 lines from the bottom. Vayikasher roa Yaakov es Rochel ben bas Lovan achi imo, v'son Lovan achi imo. Vayigash Yaakov vayogel es even mal pi aber. He rolls off the stone. Vayashke son Lovan achi imo. So remember what Rashi said over here, the right column of Rashi. Vayigash Yaakov vayogel ke'odam ha'shamaver es ha'prak mal pi atzlochis leodiacha shekocho gadol. His strength was very great. Right? The Yaakov is also strong. Yaakov could also move the stone around. So, what strength are we talking about? So, plain meaning seems to be Yaakov is physically strong. But do you remember the Gemara that says that we mentioned this recently about Rabbi Chanina ben Dosa, whose daughter put vinegar into the candle holder instead of the oil? Remember the Gemara? Rabbi Chanina ben Dosa saw his daughter, and the daughter looked upset. He said, "What's wrong?" She said she mixed up vinegar with oil. She put the oil instead of oil into the Shabbos candle, she put in vinegar. So her father, Rabbi Chanina ben Dosa, said, okay, the one that told the oil to burn, he'll tell the vinegar to burn. So she lit the vinegar. The vinegar burnt the whole Shabbos. And it burnt all the way till Motzei Shabbos. They made Havdalah on the vinegar candles, on the vinegar fire. The problem is vinegar doesn't burn, right? What did Reb Chanina ben Dosa say? He said the one who told the oil to burn, he told the vinegar to burn. That means that if you get to a level of faith where you actually believe that whatever happens is only because Hashem is doing it, I mean, we're talking about 100%, and you really believe that the only reason oil burns has nothing to do with chemistry, oil burns because Hashem said oil should burn. That's why oil burns. It has nothing to do with chemistry. Chemistry is how Hashem has hidden himself in the burning of the oil. It has nothing to do with chemistry. For a human being, we look at, combustibility and this and yes and all that. But at the end of the day, you're really there, so then you get vinegar to burn. Can you do this? Yeah. Is that nature or a miracle? Excellent. It's a miracle. Says the Ramban, it's a miracle. Right? So why don't we see it as a miracle? What about the splitting of the Yam Suf? Miracle. Excellent. Nature. Right? The answer is they're either both nature or both a miracle. And says the Ramban, they're both a miracle. Why don't you appreciate the fact that your brain is sending impulses to your fingers when you did like that? That was an impulse that went from the brain to the to the finger, right? Or finger to the brain, however it works. How come that's not a miracle? It's not a miracle that a person is able to talk, a person is able to look, a person is able to do that a person is able to, the eye is more complex than any camera ever developed. That's not a miracle. Every single thing that we do, that you could chew your food, they have a digestive system, that a person could yawn, that a person could stretch, anything, any movement is a miracle. Why don't we appreciate it as a miracle? Only because why? Because we've gotten used to it. So when something happens that's beyond our experience, like the sea splitting, we regard that as a miracle. Why are you able to lift? Why can I lift my glasses? What gives me the ability to lift my? It's a miracle. It's only because Kosh Baruch gave me the ability to lift my glasses. That's the only reason. Ultimately, is there any difference between lifting your glasses and lifting a rock? There's no difference at all. There's really no difference. Why do we have trouble lifting a rock? Because we're limited in our level of belief in God. I believe this I believe I could do. The other one I don't believe I could do. But if you really believe that this was no different than lifting a rock, you'd be able to do both. It's only a question of faith, like Rabbi Chanina ben Dosa, believing that the oil and vinegar ultimately makes no difference. Ultimately, it makes no difference. The only difference is our level of emunah, our level of belief in God. Kocho Gadol, Yaakov's strength. What strength are we talking about over here? His strength of belief in God. If your strength of belief in God is to such a level, so he can lift up. What does Rashi say? He popped the rock off just like you pop a cork off of a bottle. I mean, that's pretty strong. That means that his level, what strength are we talking about? We're talking about the strength of his emunah. You're on such a high level that to you it makes absolutely no difference. It makes zero difference to you whether it's a rock or whether it's glasses. That's why Yaakov was able to take it off without any problem. If a person really got to that level, of belief, a lot of things you could activate in life. We're not on that level. Therefore, we have to make profit. It's the same Yaakov Avinu who could put stones around his head and sleep soundly. You know, if I was in the wilderness, with wild animals around me, I wouldn't be sleeping at night. You know, put stones around my body. Even if I closed myself in a capsule, I still wouldn't be able to sleep at night. Be nervous, right? Yaakov Avinu put stones around. Okay, good enough. Here we go. Good night, everybody. Shema Yisrael. You know, he's sleeping. Why? Because you're at that level. I've done my ishtadlus. I'm protected. That's why I told you. That makes a difference even in our own ishtadlus. The Rambam says a person should work 3 hours a day. How do you like that? Right? The Rambam says a working man, you work 3 hours a day. If you're a working man, you work 3 hours a day, you learn Torah 9 hours a day. That's for an average working guy. If you're in Kollel, so then you learn 12 hours. You know, that's well, you work 3 hours a day. Can we find a job working 3 hours a day nowadays? Is that called, if you would take a job as a lawyer working 3 hours a day, that's not responsible for. Then you wonder, why aren't I making parnasa? I'm a Rambam man. Why aren't I making parnasa? Right? The answer is because you yourself don't believe it's enough. You yourself don't believe 3 hours a day is enough. Because in your society, if you're going to be a lawyer and you're going to work, then you know you have to work at least 14 hours a day. That's how it works. So it's what you genuinely believe. Remember I told you a story of Yosef Chaim Sonnenfeld? Yosef Chaim Sonnenfeld, he was the Rav of Yerushalayim in the 20s. There's a book, The Guardian of Jerusalem, there's a book in the library from the Art Scroll. Rabbi Yosef Chaim Sonnenfeld said he was destitutely poor. And his wife started crying because they really got to the point where everybody was poor, but they were really poor. So Rabbi Yosef Chaim Sonnenfeld left the house and he went looking on the sidewalk. And while looking on the sidewalk, after 10 minutes, he found two gold coins, 2 gold Napoleons. That was enough parnasa for a month. And he was upset. You know what he was upset about? That it took him 10 minutes to find the coins. He felt he's not on the high enough level. If he was real high level, he should have opened his front door and the coin should have been there. Right? He felt he was at a high enough level. If you're on a high enough level, a lot of things could happen. And I told you that we have to believe. You want to hear a good story? I'll tell you a good story. There's a shocker. There was it's documented. A couple was married. They were married for 12 years. They didn't have children. So there's a halacha if you're married over 10 years, you don't have children, you have to get divorced if you're living there. It's Israel. You have it. Okay, this couple was married 12 years, and they did divide. The husband decided, listen, we're not having children. We may as well get divorced. They didn't want to get divorced, but it's not happening. So he gave his wife a get, and he was a Kohen. He gave his wife a get. And after a couple of months, they found out she was expecting. He can't remarry her because he's a Kohen. So he's devastated. Didn't want to get divorced. He's devastated. He's a Kohen. So they took the get to the poskim, even to Rav Yashiv. They took the get to see maybe there's a flaw in the get, which makes the get is bottle. Right? Maybe the get's not a good get. They couldn't find any flaw. So the guy didn't know what to do. He was destitute. So he said, what do I do? Rabbi Yosef says, there's nothing I could do. Other guy go to the kaisel and cry, but there's really nothing you could do here. There's no halacha that I know of. You know, go to the kaisel and cry. So the guy goes to the kaisel, crying his eye out. Some old man sees him at the kaisel. He says, what's wrong? He says, whatever. He says, doesn't. I'm not going to go into it. It's just as bad. He says, you know, if I were you, I'd go visit my father. Hacking me a China. He says, if I were you, I'd go. The guy walks away, comes back. He says, if I were you, I'd go visit my father. The guy's wondering, why is he saying this? If his father lives in Dallas, he doesn't even have a connection with his father. So finally he decides, listen, I got nothing else to do. I'll go visit my father. So he goes to visit his father. So his father, it turns out, he got there just in time. His father is very close. His father's not well, and he doesn't have much time left. He says to his son, listen, I want to tell you something. You know, I never told you this. Your mother and I swore, so we swore each other to secrecy. You know, we didn't have children for many years, and eventually we decided we're going to adopt, so we adopted you. You know, we told you you're a Kohen, but you're really not. Right? And he got the adoption papers and documents. This is a true story. Document papers, and he went back to Arizona, and everybody lived happily ever after. Remarried his wife, everybody lived happily ever after. There are certain times in life where things look hopeless. I mean, this story is absolutely hopeless, right? Yet, a person with enough, well, not, obviously, if he was really a Kohen, there's no way out. There are certain times, you know, they asked Rabbi Yashiv, I think Rabbi Yashiv said, what's he supposed to do? Rabbi Yashiv says he has to do what the Torah says to do. That was Rabbi Yashiv's response. He has to do what the Torah says to do. He can't go changing the Torah. But a person has to know that at that level, you could actually activate things. A person could activate things where there is room for things to be activated. That's what they call it. So Yaakov Avinu lagidcha shekocha gadol. That's the kocha gadol. Okay, stop here.